welcome back. Hey, we're doing something different in December. We're doing the top 10.
Top 10? That's right.
In no particular order.
In no particular order. We went back and looked at the most listened to, and we also looked
some of our favorites.
Some of our favorites are in here too. So we decided to put together a top 10 out of our massive year of podcasting, where we put out over 80 episodes. That's right. So here we are, and this episode was your cousin-in-law,
Joey Alcala.
And when we looked at the stats, Joey's the three we did with him, actually all of them made the top 10 listened to.
Because Joey's thebomb.com.
I don't know about that, but
well, I mean, he makes fun of you in the episodes about your love of girly hot drinks, not coffee.
I don't drink coffee.
Right.
Anyway,
and we make fun of you.
So this episode that we're going to be listening to, that we're re-releasing today, this entire series is on balancing family and ministry, and we go into soul care and how to take care of yourself, protecting yourself from in this craziness of this year. This really has become an important thing.
One of the toughest years,
yeah. So it's important. So we hope you enjoy this episode with Joey Alcala.
All right.
Welcome to the Advancement Podcast. Our mission is to reach the lost in America by advancing leaders and churches so that communities are transformed. Join us as we discuss how to stay healthy as leaders, work in teams, and lead change. Come on, let's advance together.
Hello, and welcome to the next and latest episode of the Advancement Podcast.
Once again from Mug on the Square.
We've got the chalkboard this time.
Hello.
Tim's still drinking his girly drinks, hot apple cider. But we've got a coffee connoisseur on today, so he's going to make fun of you too.
Well, Todd, there are other things in the world besides coffee.
Is there? I don't know if there's much.
Yeah, there's part. We originally talked about driving the hour over and recording with Joey live, but there were some conflicts, but it's okay because I was afraid y'all might try to do something coffee-ish to me if I got y'all together.
Well, would that be so bad?
I don't know. Would you have done that, Joey?
You know what? We probably would have. Absolutely. I don't carry apple cider or like Kool-Aid or anything like that here. So
I'm not doing red Kool-Aid, okay?
I'm sure White Rhino could hook you up with something girly.
Absolutely. Maybe get you some loose leaf tea.
Yeah.
Oh. that just was all kind of wrong sounding right there.
Well, if you haven't figured out already, we have the illustrious, you are the next generation executive pastor at the Oaks. Is that correct,
Yes,
Joey?
Sir.
In Red Oak, Texas.
Mouthful.
In Red Oak, Texas.
Yes.
Joey Alcala. Fun fact today, Joey and I are actually related. Did you know that?
Yeah, we
Tim?
are.
I didn't know that, but it's scary.
We're related in marriage, so we're first cousins once removed, I guess it's called. I don't know.
Dude, don't even get me
Or
started.
I think we're just
noise.
first cousins-in-law. So I am married to Joey's younger cousin, Crystal, formerly Alcala.
And his family has struggled ever since.
Yeah, they're still working on it. They're still praying through. Although it is better now, because when I entered the family, I was Baptist. And now I am Assembly of God. So I have raised up in the echelon.
Well, because they were all already.
They were all Assembly, and so
okay. For all of you that are our Baptist
listeners,
It was a marriage thing. He had to go.
I had to go. Well, the funny thing is,
don't be unequally yoked,
Joey. I don't even know if you knew this. My father-in-law now. I was Baptist when I came into the family. Now I'm AG. And he just got on staff at a Baptist church.
That's a trade. There you go. There's a trade out.
And
Come on.
We love everybody. We're all about the kingdom here.
He used to joke with me that he was praying for my salvation. So the day I heard he got the job, I texted him and say, "I'm praying for your salvation."
That is awesome.
for those who are not Assemblies of God and are listening, please know that we love you too.
Hey,
Or I
love
do.
my
I
Baptist
can't
brethren.
speak. I can't speak a whole lot about
I
Todd
love my
sometimes.
Baptist brethren. You guys know the Bible much better than we do. So
Yeah.
that is very true.
So, yeah, we've done all that. A couple of fun facts also. Everybody that listens knows we do batch recording, but this one's going to come out. This episode should come out on February the 11th. That makes Friday Valentine's Day. If you're listening to this,
So go to Target right now.
go
Get your wife
somewhere,
something.
do something.
Yes.
And if
don't
you
get her the leftover roses either. Man,
that's not good.
Don't
That's
get her a
not good.
blender or a vacuum cleaner either.
And if you've delayed listening to this, I hope that you had a good weekend and that you did something for your wife.
Yeah. But Valentine's is on a Friday, so you still got time.
You've got time right
got
now,
time.
but
Yeah.
if you wait till Saturday,
Yeah, you're going to be out of luck.
It's
Out of luck.
yeah. So, but that's actually a great segue for us because we scheduled Joey, knowing he's the next generation pastor there at the Oaks. But in some of our mutual friends, one of the guys is actually a overseer at the church. He said to me, "I don't know anybody in ministry or around that's a younger minister that does balancing family and ministry as well as Joey does."
Oh, wow.
So that's pretty high praise, dude.
Man, that's awesome. Were you talking to my dad or my mom?
I was actually talking to Mike Harper.
Well, and Mike doesn't give out the compliments.
Yeah, Mike doesn't give them out real easy. So
It's not so that is a big compliment coming from Mike.
That means a lot. No, definitely.
but that's us having that this discussion right here at Valentine's Day because all the research and out there talks about how spouses of ministers feel left out and children. There's just this family dynamic. We've heard a lot in recent years. People talk about Sabbath, but there's no harder thing for pastors and ministers to do than to balance that piece. So let's just kind of dig in there, Joey, and
Absolutely.
first of all, give us a little bit more bio. We know what you do. Tell us about your family.
Yeah, absolutely. At the time, I have a 11-year-old and a 14-year-old daughter, 2 girls, and man, I love them. I've been married to my wife for about 18 years now, and so have had some opportunities to do things right and do some things wrong. But it is difficult, when you're talking about ministry and none of us we're all doing great things and we're trying to do the best to build the kingdom. And unfortunately, sometimes the people that pay the highest prices are families. And so I love that you guys are, talking about this subject, because I think it's something that isn't talked about often, but the importance of, if our number one responsibility is to make disciples, go into all the world, make disciples, yet we neglect our family, what kind of example is that to the world, to the people that we serve? And we know that, but it's just us really having to be intentional about keeping our family first, and I've had some really good examples of that, and I've been blessed with that. My mentors and leaders really have focused on, hey, we're going to do great ministry, but we're going to keep our family number one. If we're healthy and our family's healthy, then we can minister, be a ministry that works out of that health. And so that's something that, that I've seen been an example to me. And so I want to be that example as well.
So let's talk about that for a minute. I hate to go there first, but you said it. So everybody out there that's listening, that's especially a young minister, they're asking themselves, well, what mistakes did he make?
Because everyone listens to this podcast.
Well, everyone will be eventually. We're working towards that.
That's exactly right.
But as we, I know we've all made mistakes too. I think of,
absolutely.
My kids were little. Rachel and I was bivocational, so I worked a 40-hour job, 50 hours most weeks.
Absolutely.
And then we would spend Saturdays and Sundays often at the church, and our kids, when they were toddlers, were raised in the nursery watching videos and just kind of running the nursery while we worked around the church all day and then came back on Sunday. And they don't remember that, but I often feel guilty when I remember those moments.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I've been there too, and I know this one thing for all of us who have been at that place before. I know that God has grace on that, and He loves us, and He gives us an opportunity. And I believe even in those moments, He's like, "Hey, I got your kids. Like, you're not the perfect father. I am, and your heart is in the right place. But we can start being really intentional where we're at now, moving forward." I think the biggest mistake that I made was it's so easy as a younger minister to work out of a place of wanting to see your ministry grow or the fruit of your ministry grow. And so we do everything that people from the outside looking in will see this healthy, flourishing ministry. But if you were to go to the core of our ministry or the core of our soul or the core of our family, we neglect that over the fruit of our ministry. And I think, opportunity, chasing opportunity, growing our ministry, we can by default put more emphasis and effort on the outskirts of our fruit growing, and we miss the very soul fruit of our family. And even spiritually, you talked about Sabbath earlier. It's so easy for us when we get the applause and the ministry's growing and people are recognizing your ministry to put more water and effort in that than in our family. But here's what I really try to focus on. If I water my soul and my family first, and I let the flow off of that grow my ministry, it's going to be sustainable. It's going to be healthy. It's going to be real. It's going to last. And I think, so the mistake I made early was watering the ministry over really focusing on my core, my family, my spiritual growth. And it wasn't out of a mean heart, guys. Like, none of us are saying, "Hey, I want to neglect my soul growth for my ministry," but it just kind of, if you don't watch and are intentional about it, it's so easy to get off.
All right, in that little in that section right there, you use the word soul four times. That's very interesting to me that you seem to tie soul care, soul growth, soul health, not spiritual health. If we think about the triune being, spirit, soul, body, that there's a soul component to that family relationship.
Absolutely. I feel like the others speak for itself, but if our soul is in the right place, if our spirit is in the right place, if the core of who we are is focused on pleasing God with everything that we have, it runs off into our family. And that's what I want my girls and my wife. I want them to say, "Dad is healthy at home. Dad is loving at home. The same way Dad is at home, he is on the stage. And the same way Dad is on the stage, I don't want there to be a disparity or discrepancy." And so that's why I put so much emphasis on the health of your spirit, soul, your mind. It all starts there, and then it has to run off into your ministry and not vice versa. Because we all know leaders who have had great ministries, but because their core wasn't in the right place, their everything was for naught, it came crashing down. And so working on that inner, it'll affect the outer.
So how did you got something? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, how do you work on your soul? You talked about soul, and what are some things you do to pour into your soul? Because I know with me, and I'm sure with you guys, I've got such a busy schedule. It's easy to neglect spending that time pouring into our soul because we've got so many other things that are vying for our attention. How do you really pour into your soul?
Yeah, we have this value here about healthy leaders, and soul care often seems to be the thing that's overlooked when we talk about healthy leaders in the church.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, it comes back to being intentional with your schedule and in your time. If it's not on your calendar, it's not going to get done. So we can preach soul care. We can preach that you need to be healthy, But if I were to look at your calendar, or if you were to look at my calendar, it would really show me what's important to you, and you would see what's important to me. So if health is important to you, then it should be reflected in your calendar. So for me, practically, I make sure that I have time where I am refreshed during the week. Me and my wife and I go to counseling every week for soul and healthcare. I mean, and it is preached here big. You don't have to be around the church or Pastor Scott very long for him to say, hey, your soul, your mind, your spirit is number one, that you're healthy. So he really encourages all the staff to find a professional burden bearer or a counselor to really help us walk through things that we're carrying. Because here's the example that my counselor used with me. He's like, Joey, you guys, what do you do all day? He's like, you carry people's burdens. You're loving on people. You're ministering to people. He's like, have you ever seen a surgeon do surgery on themselves? And I'm like, no. He's like, that's impossible. Why? They're not going to do surgery. So who is helping you carry what you're carrying and walking you through things with your family and your life and season of change? And so one of the things, practically that we do is we go to counseling. As a couple, I go to counseling. I have in my calendar time that I am refreshing myself so that I can be healthy.
Okay, so there's two things here. I'm trying to think as our listeners about the different how we define soul care.
Yeah.
And you're really talking. I think the simplest definition maybe I've ever heard comes out of what you said, that it's about letting someone else help carry my burdens.
Absolutely. I think in the past, even my mindset was, if I'm having to have help, then there's something wrong with me. Like, as
but
a
that's
leader,
not even biblical. I mean, the Bible
right?
says bear one another's burdens, submit to each other, all these things.
Yeah.
But it's so hard for us as leaders and people who are pushing others to grow, for us ourselves to say, man, I need to get someone to help me grow. I need to get someone to help me walk through some things that I'm walking through. And I feel like it's the mentality that we're having to fight to stay healthy, that me needing help is me actually being strong enough to allow people to help me.
Joey, what are some resources that guys can find for like counselors and stuff? Because I know counselors can be expensive, and I know if
Absolutely.
you're a part of the North Texas Assembly of God, they offer some counseling, I think,
Absolutely.
through Peter Pignon.
Yeah, but I don't think. I mean, that's just. But even is that an ongoing thing, or that's the question?
Yeah.
I think the piece that I wrestle with a little bit when I think about the listeners and the majority of leaders in the church that are out there, the average church in America is still under 200, and the median church is under 100, and where guys are bivocational and they feel the time crunch and they may not have the resources to. What's that look like if you say, well, professional counseling isn't in the
budget?
It's not in the budget. And even because I've got a secular job and I'm trying to pastor, or I'm trying to be on staff.
Absolutely.
How do we find that balance point? What's soul care look like for that person?
Well,
for those guys.
There's a couple things. I would say every time I go to a counselor, it hits my wallet and I'm like, man, that's a lot. That's a big responsibility, or it's a big chunk of our income. But I have to go back to, what's the most important thing to me? Is it me going to, watch a couple movies, getting coffee every day and not I feel like for me, it's that important that I make space for that soul care to happen.
Yeah.
Now, if you're like, there's no way I can handle it, I would say find men and women of God who are in a season, that have gone through the season that you're already in, and you find a time that you say, I want you to help me. I want you to walk with me. I want you to pray with me. And do you have 30 minutes or an hour a week that I'll buy you coffee, and I just want to talk to you. I want you to pray. There are people in my church that I meet with on a regular basis because they're where I want to be one day. They're seasons ahead of me. Their kids are already grown. That I want to emulate their spiritual development, their leadership, what they've done. And so I would say, if you're at a place where you're like, I just can't afford that, I believe that God has people around you that if you're aware, he'll show you that you need to connect with them and make time in your schedule, put it on your calendar that you're going to meet with this guy or this lady that will help you grow.
So friends could be, so
sure.
it can be solved through the friendship avenue.
Absolutely.
Also. I think,
Absolutely.
but it's still be intentional. Be intentional.
Yeah.
Be intentional. Now, the next thing that I think about that you've said multiple times, if it's not in your calendar, it's not going to happen. You need to put it in your calendar. For those guys that, a lot of people put things in their calendar. But they don't always get done. There's that whole thing. How do you help somebody develop the discipline or stick to the discipline? The word that comes to my mind is accountability.
Absolutely.
But how do you help? How would you recommend and talk to somebody about that?
A lot of it is, and you guys have probably preached it and taught it, but until you are sick and tired of being sick and tired, or until you're at a place where if you don't change, you're not going to change. You kind of have to get to the place where in yourself, I can be accountable to somebody, but we all know how accountability works. Usually we're held accountable after we've already done the thing or haven't done the thing that we wanted them to be accountable to. A lot of it is putting it on your calendar and sticking to it is a lot of you saying, okay, I got to grow because I put things on my calendar and they haven't stayed on my calendar, or they're there, but I'm not. And so a lot of it is discipline is on you being accountable or guardrails, but you have to get it to a place where if growth is important, then you're going to have to come to a place where it's important enough for me to follow through for these things to happen, because it's really on you.
As you're talking about that, I'm reminded of Hebrews chapter 12, where it says God disciplines us for our own good, that we may share in his holiness. And none of us like discipline no discipline seems pleasing at the time, but it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace. And so there's a reality of if we don't take care of our soul, there's discipline coming.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Joey, give us some practical things. What do you use for your calendar? What are some soul care things that you do? You mentioned the counselor. Are there some other things you do? What are some practical pieces you use, whether you use a written calendar or a digital calendar? A lot of these guys, I'm sure, are asking and thinking these questions.
Yeah,
I can tell you that some of the younger guys that are listeners are going to use an electronic calendar. And we have some guys who are in the middle that use both, like me.
Well, that's why I'm asking Joey. I want to know what Joey does. I know you're an old man. Joey's not.
That's right. Well, and then there are some people that just like paper.
Yeah. That's my wife. That. My wife's younger than me, and she loves paper.
Yeah,
I like
my wife.
I like to touch it.
Yep. I think there's several things. You got to find what works for you. I'm sure you guys are like me. It's seasonal. Yeah. Like I'll have a season that a paper calendar works. I'll have a season that right now everything is on iCalendar for me. My work, my family calendar synced. My two daughters have access to both calendars where they can edit or put events on that they have. So it keeps us moving, in the same direction. So I use iCal. I've been using have you seen the self journal?
No.
But
no.
It's called the self journal. And basically this gives you a quarterly goals, weekly reviews, daily task and to do. It just really, it's what is going to work for you. Here's what I know. For me, if I get too detailed, you lost me. Like, I don't want to detail my life out, because I like to go with the flow, and just kind of let things happen. But if I do that too much, I won't get anything done.
Right.
So what works for me is self-help journal, is my iCalendar. For my task, I use a free app called Noseby. And basically that's a project management software that it's free and it's
How do you
really
spell
easy
that?
to use. Nozbe. And it's really easy to use. There's a free app called Monday.com that you can use. Asana is another one, but it's a little bit more expensive. So you have to, what works for you. So I use iCal. I use a self-help calendar. I do weekly reviews, Todd, that on Saturday, I'm looking back over my week each day and saying, hey, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? What did I miss? So that I'm always evaluating the week before. Some of the books that I'm reading I just finished, like the Spiritual Healthy Leader. And there's a couple of different books there. Anonymous by Alicia Britt Jolie is a great book as well. And so constantly reading, but I think practically it's calendar and follow through.
Yeah.
So there's two things that I do. First of all, I really like the fact that everybody in the family has access to your calendar.
Yeah, absolutely.
We do that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know my wife and I share access to the calendar. If I
Yeah.
put something on, she can take it all. There's that.
Absolutely.
So now it's kind of funny because Rachel, when my wife, she does a 2-week calendar. We got one of these dry erase ones. She sticks on the fridge. It's magnetic.
Right.
It sticks on the fridge, and it's and she does meal plans, but she does what's going on that day, and she updates it every 2 weeks. So she keeps it out in front of us. So she'll sit down when she goes to fill it out. She'll say, okay, is this still happening? Are you going to be here? So we're not, we work through date nights, everything.
Yep.
So it's on our electronic calendar, my paper calendar also. And then it's also on the fridge. So we can, to keep it in front of us all the time.
Yeah. One thing my wife does on our iCal is if she wants some time with me, she'll go in and schedule big blocks of it. She doesn't put anything but schedule nothing, and it's in her calendar, and I could see it, and I go like, yes, ma'am, I won't schedule anything.
I'm not schedule nothing. I do nothing at all.
And she doesn't.
Wait, this is the Alcala family. Nada.
Nada. No.
Although she refuses to speak Spanish, but that's neither here nor there.
That's not the point.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But that's pretty cool. The other thing that so when you talk about you sit down and do a weekly review, does your wife Stacy get to sit down and be a part of that review and her speak into your review, or is it just you?
What me and Stacy do is every Saturday, Friday or Saturday, depending on what the day is, we'll sit and talk budget and calendar for the week that's coming up. Now, does that happen every week? No, we'll miss 1 week here or there. But what that allows us to do is kind of get in front of any budget questions or calendar questions that we might have. And we're just looking a week from that day on. So if we do it on Saturday, we're looking at Sunday through next Sunday. And that's been really, really helpful for communication, being intentional with our time again, and then being a communication with money for all of us who are married, or money can be a really big deal. So you talk through money, talk through schedule, you're kind of setting the plan for you to have a really good week moving forward.
Wow, this is good stuff. I'm glad that we're planning to do a few episodes on this topic, because we're just scratching the surface talking about balancing family. And I'll be honest, I had no idea that it was going to take this soul turn that it did. But
Yeah.
I really like that. And probably the big takeaways, if you're listening today, that I've got in my notes here. Number one was real early on. We have to trust that God is a better father than we are.
Yeah.
For our kids, and that he's going to help us along the way. Care for your soul, and two big pieces for that is be intentional, be accountable, and I just think this whole thing of intentionality means be open with the calendar, be open with your budget, give the entire family voice into your life.
Yeah. For me, I really like what Joey said about dad is the same at home as he is on the stage, because I know for me, dad tends to be a little bit more grumpy at home than he is on the stage, especially during different seasons.
There's so much I want to say right there. There's so much I want to say right there.
And then I like what he said about what his counselor said about surgeons don't operate on themselves.
Yeah.
And we expect that we have the capacity to carry all the burdens that we have to carry, but really we can't. And it just, we can for a while, but then it's going to catch up with us.
As you know, since I am the old guy in the room on the podcast, I know that traditionally in ministry, that armor, that invincibility, that was a persona that was expected of people in ministry.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it caused and it's led us down a road of a lot of hurt. So we're having to redeem, in many ways, we're having to redeem the ministry.
Right.
Yeah.
Today because of that. So, well, thanks, Joey. Here's what I would ask those of you. We always like to leave our listeners with kind of a question to ponder. And here's what I would ask of you. How intentional are you about not just planning and following your calendar, but how intentional are you about giving your family voice into your calendar?
Yeah, that's good.
All right. So, woohoo.
Another episode down.
One more down.
Yeah.
And a few more to go.
All
right. Thanks, Joey. We'll talk to you next time.
Honor. Thank you, guys.
All right.
If you would like to keep this content coming, all Tim and Todd ask is $1 per show. See how to give, maybe even sponsor an episode or series on the website advancement.cc. Until next week, continue to advance the mission of Jesus.